Hi, this is Nicole Rivera, and you're listening to the Stop Writing Alone podcast. StopWritingAlone.substack.com. That's the new name. That's basically the new home base for Stop Writing Alone communications. So in the past, I have used MailChimp to send out any emails to subscribers of the Stop Writing Alone email list. And that's been, it's been helpful over the years to kind of get news out about different events that were going on. But to be perfectly honest with you, and I think we've talked about this in the past, I just found the back end of MailChimp to be very clunky. I always liked the way the emails looked and the landing pages. Everything looked very nice at the end. But if you're not familiar with MailChimp as a user, then it's just very funky. Instead of opening up a page to just write an email, there's like these two panes, and one is all Word text boxes and things like that. It just was never very conducive to, ironically, of all things, writing for me, especially with my vision issues, to have to work within the smaller pane. It wasn't great. And so as a result, what's happened over the years, I have stopped writing emails to the community, and it's driven me absolutely crazy because this whole thing is about writing. Writing was my first and foremost, most simplistic form of communication and connection. And I felt a little stifled over the years that I haven't been able to connect with you in that way. So, what have I done in the interim? I've tried to do that through Facebook, through Instagram, through all different spaces. And I've become, clearly more comfortable in verbal communication through the podcast. So that has helped. But I've been wanting another way to connect with everyone. So Substack has come to the rescue for me on so many different fronts, because in that aspect, it is so much easier to use. And many of you know that I've been using Substack now. Oh goodness, I don't know when I started it, but I have a storyhoarder.substack.com where I share my fiction. So every single week, twice a week, I'm on there writing. So I've really gotten into the back end there, and it's so much more my style, so much more my speed, that I said, you know what, I am going to make the leap for Stop Writing Alone. So on that one front of where I felt really shackled by MailChimp, Substack has released that for me. But then on the other end, they also just added the audio capabilities. So this episode, I'm really just wanted to give you a rundown of all the things that can happen over at stopwritingalone.substack.com and what my hopeful plans are, because it's in its soft launch right now. If you are subscribed to the Stop Writing Alone mailing list, if you've been subscribed to the Stop Writing Alone mailing list, then you received an email from me this morning saying that we're moving, and I will be moving that entire list over to Substack. For anybody that wants to join the mailing list from this point forward, you would go to stopwritingalone.substack.com. And one of the things that I absolutely love about this is now my mailing list will receive an email every single time there's a new episode. So that's something that I had been doing when the Stop Writing Alone podcast started. Right in the beginning of 2019, I started the podcast in January, and every week I would do a podcast, and by the end of the week I would write an email that had links to the podcast, just, talking about what was the topic of the week, and here you can go listen. And that was something that was part of the dream for Stop Writing Alone, that would continue all the way throughout. And it just got to be too cumbersome to do that and make the show notes page that would go on stopwritingalone.com and feed it out to all the social media spaces. Well, that's the cool thing that is working for us with Substack now. When I put this podcast out, it's going to automatically feed to Substack and then automatically send to your inbox if you're subscribed. And also that website will be the home base for all the show notes. They'll automatically go. So what a dream come true for me, that all of these steps, things that I was doing for a very long time manually, each of those steps is now all in one. And you don't have to do anything. If you're subscribed to the mailing list, this is just all going to come to you. The other great thing is that for those of you that have been interested in the writing prompts that I share every single week on YouTube, but maybe you don't remember to go over to YouTube, it's just so much easier for me to share it now. I can drop it into the Substack, and then it'll be in your inbox, and you can see it, and you can use it or save it, or say, I don't need one this week. I just feel like this is just opening up the doors of the types of communication that I've wanted to have with the community from the beginning. And it was just, it was so many steps for all the things that I wanted to do that it overwhelmed me. And now it's all automated, basically. So every single one of these posts that goes out will also, like I said, be on the website. And then on the website, they all have their own comment section. So you have the option every single time something goes out to engage with me by just replying to the email. If you wanted to, I can get a response that way. Or by writing into the comments on the page itself. That would be engaging with me and the entire community, giving feedback or thoughts about the episode or about the prompt itself. So, on the YouTube prompts that happen every single week. So I think there's just going to be a lot of space for us to grow as a community, connect with each other, not just, the audience to me, but the audience to each other. Could be a really great space for writers to meet up. And also, as we move forward, this is going to be the simplest place for me to share the Zoom links for all of our different events moving forward. So it's like one website to find all the things at stopwritingalone.substack.com. And the ideas that I have moving forward that will be coming up throughout the summer and beyond are sharing all of our community events, same types of events that I've been doing, but I don't feel like everybody's been hearing about. The write-ins, the writing prompt parties, the virtual chats that we have, the Zoom chats that we have. As we get into nano season, we like to get more into like brainstorming, talking about story structure, those types of things. When we do critique partnerships, this is a good way to sort of enter into those types of communities. But I also have planned coming up a summer reading program for anyone who is looking to take on story in the fall for NaNoWriMo. I think it was, I don't know if it was last year or the year before. I feel like it was the year before. As part of the Happy Campers community, one of the things that we did is in late summer, we started reading Story Genius all together as a group and really brought all of those elements of learning into our NaNoWriMo in October and November. So I really wanted to replicate that again. I have a couple of books that I'm sort of deciding between, and I'm probably going to put a vote out to the community to decide which book we should tackle this year in the summer leading into NaNoWriMo. Just sort of get some expertise, some advice about, hey, this is a great book on story structure and story ideas. Let's learn from the best, right? And do it together and have those conversations, debating the merits of what we're learning. It's something that I absolutely love doing in community. I have all these books on my shelf, and I sometimes read through them all alone, make notes in the margin, have notebooks, and I feel like my brain is filling up, but it just feels so much better when I'm doing that with somebody else. So that's something that I'm looking forward to sharing with everybody through this new medium, as well as just continually coming at you with writing inspirations and writing resources. These are all the things, guys, when I started this podcast, you know how people on the internet have those freebies, like a free PDF to join my mailing list or what have you? Well, I came out of the fence just running. I made a new freebie every single week for I don't even know how long. I would have to look into my hard drive and see, but I truly felt like I needed a freebie to go with every single episode. And of course, I hit burnout pretty quickly with that, but it wasn't just because it was so much every single week to do. It was because it was so difficult to get that stuff out to everybody. So I'm really looking forward to having a space where sharing these things is not the problem. And then I can just get back into full creation mode and continue sharing. It's what I love to do. I'm actually cracking up thinking about this because when I was a child, I remember friends coming over to my house. They're in my room, and I have my piggy bank open on my bed, and I'm just handing out money to everybody. And my mom comes in and says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm sharing." My parents had to have like a whole conversation with me about like the levels of sharing. Like, okay, this is wonderful. You always love to share, Nicole. It hasn't stopped. I just want to share with you guys. And I just feel really happy about the fact that I think I found a place that's going to make that easier for me to do. Because all of this quietness that you may have experienced from me, if you have been on the mailing list and you're like, I don't know, this girl shows up every single week to the podcast and the YouTube, so I know she's alive, but then there's nothing. There's like crickets in my inbox. I just want you to know that it's not for lack of desire. It's simply, I felt like I was beating my head against the wall all this time. So we're back. We're back in communication here. And I'm super excited about it because I love showing up to Substack every single week for my story hoarder. It reminds me of my old days when I first came onto the internet and I had my simple little blogger blog, and all I had to do was just come up with my idea and write it and drop my pictures in and be done. And it was out there and I was connecting with people out in the world. That's the simplicity of this for me. And so I want to know if that's the case, right? If there's not just the Stop Writing Alone podcast, and there's not just the YouTube channel where you're getting video prompts from me every single week. If there is this new layer of written communication opened back up, what are the types of things that you would like to hear from me? Do you want more writing prompts? Is it possible? Can I possibly share more writing prompts? Do you want resources, other places and communities to connect with? Because, I'm here sharing with you guys. And of course, I host events with writers, but you know that I also participate in different events. Like I'm doing the Write at the Museum with Word West Press right now, or Reading with Daniel, with Daniel David Wallace. So, of course, I have my ear to the ground for things that are going on. Is that like a regular segment that you would like me to share, like stuff that's going on in the writing world that's out there for you? I'm just spitballing ideas, but definitely there is an aspect here of the Substack where I can start writing and communicating with you. There will be, as we move forward, a private end to the community as well. If you were on Substack, you're probably familiar with many, many people having like paid subscriptions. And there's going to be a paid level of Stop Writing Alone, but there's most of this stuff that I'm talking about is going to be on the free end. Well, let me just put it this way. Everything that I'm talking about is going to have its free aspect. It's going to be, clearly the podcast is always free. The YouTube is always free. and many of the resources and writing prompts like that is all free stuff. That's what I'm, like I said, I'm here for sharing. And the online events will many times be free, but there's probably going to be just like, if you want more of them, jump on in. So that would be coming down the pipe in the next couple of weeks, probably. I will say this is the other thing that I wanted to say. I didn't write this down in my notebook, so I forgot to say it. If you're in there right now, if you're looking at the Substack, you're probably, and I mean now as in like the moment this podcast goes live, you're probably just seeing the podcast, because I went ahead and threw this all together and shifted the mailing list before even putting on all the nice touches at the Substack. I completely forgot that when I did my Story Hoarder Substack, I did things like create the icon for the page and the cover photo and the welcome email and all of these different things. I was like, oops, I forgot to do that. And I already had scheduled that this podcast was going to happen today. So it's kind of under construction in the next couple of days. All of that stuff will be done probably by the end of the weekend. But just in case you're very eager and you've kicked down the door and you've run inside and you're looking around, you're like, I don't know what this is. It's just the podcast. That's because I'm building. So yeah. And I should have said this at the beginning. Maybe I did. I don't know if I did. This does not mean that you can't listen to the podcast wherever you've normally listened to the podcast, or that you can't access the videos on YouTube. Everything is going to pretty much be exactly the same, but I'm adding stuff. From my end, I'm just adding stuff. For me, it's going to look a little bit different on the back end, and I can do more. But for you, if you want to just keep listening to the podcast just the way you listen to it and do nothing more, you're good. That's all. But if you want more, and you haven't already signed up to the Stop Writing Alone mailing list, because I haven't mentioned it in like a year, so you might not even know it exists if you're a new listener, then head on over to stopwritingalone.substack.com, and it asks you like at every second, like, are you a subscriber? And then you just drop in your email address, and then you are subscribed, and then you will get not just the podcast, but you'll get all of these other things as well. So yeah, the big question for you is, if there is more coming from Stop Writing Alone, what would you like that to be? And what would you look for even from a podcast perspective? I know that there's so many podcasts out there where they have extras, and sometimes it's like, extra parts of interviews or behind the scenes or what have you. Is there any of that stuff that you want from Stop Writing Alone? I don't know. I'm just showing up, doing my thing, and I'm thinking everybody's happy. But maybe there's something that you've been wanting all this time. I'm saying it now, not because now is the first time I've wanted to give more, but it feels like the first time that I can give more. So now that we have this in front of us and there's a possibility to sort of reach for the stars, let me know what's up there. Which direction, which star am I shooting for? In the meantime, I don't feel like I've really given you anything. So I'm going to open up my daily writing resilience book, which is the 365 Meditations and Inspirations for Writers from Brian E. Robinson, PhD. And read for you the entry for June 16th so that you have a little something to go with this week. June 16th is titled Brace for Your Rite of Passage. If one is not careful, one is soon writing to please reviewers and not their audience or themselves. Louis L'Amour. That's a little quote. And now here comes our stuff from Dr. Robinson. You're excited about the release of your first publication. Your publisher is pleased, the arcs look terrific, and you have great feedback from relatives, friends, and your writing group. All is going well. You're writing for your first glowing review. Then, from out of nowhere, a critic kicks in your teeth. You lose faith in your writing ability, and your writing journey ends. At least it feels that way. Sound familiar? It's a rite of passage to get a negative review. If you haven't received one yet, you will. All writers get their fair share. Writing is a subjective business, and reviews are based on personal tastes. One reviewer will trash a literary piece, while another will extol the exact same work. When you get a bad review at the starting line, you just got to get it out of the way, like eating your vegetables. When you get bad reviews after years of publishing, learn to take the bad with the good. Discern what insights you can glean about your work and adjust accordingly. Leave the rest on the table. Dessert is coming. Today's takeaway: stay the course in your writing ability, especially in the rough swells of the publishing seas. After a bad review, think of it as a rite of passage all writers sail through. And there you go. That applies to all aspects of life where anybody is rating you, critiquing you, what have you. When you get that bad, quote, review, take the good with the bad, for sure. Good advice, Dr. Robinson. I'm going to give you one more. I'm gonna pull a card out of my Artist Way creativity cards. Let's see what we got. Oh my goodness. The card is on competition. And it says, when we focus on competition, we poison our own well, impede our own progress. Yes, I agree. One of the great joys of not writing alone anymore is finding community and finding the path beyond competition, working together to lift each other up rather than always thinking, what do they have versus what I have, who's doing better than me. I always say, if you can drop the competition, you can then join every single celebration, right? The knee jerk is when somebody else gets this great big thing. Sometimes you feel sad inside and you say, why didn't I get that? Oh, I'm so far behind, or what have you. What if you could just put that aside for a minute and join the party and be like, oh my gosh, you got this thing. That's amazing. And how many more parties would we have? It's like Hobbit living. If you've read Lord of the Rings, you know that hobbits, they don't get gifts on their birthday. Because what they do on their birthday is that they give gifts to everybody that shows up to celebrate with them, which is so smart because then you get gifts all year round. You're getting gifts at every birthday party you go to. The only one you don't get a gift at is yours. That's just one party you're not getting gifts. That's dropping the competition. If you can celebrate, dropping the competition is even better because, of course, you're going to celebrate when you get a win too. It's just always celebrating. It's wonderful. Okay, so I feel like I gave you something wonderful. Don't forget the website is stopwritingalone.substack.com, and new and fun, exciting things are coming. I'm very excited. I feel like it's going to look different to you guys. You're going to hear from me a lot more in your inbox. That's the great difference, and hopefully that's something that makes you happy. There'll be some people that'll be like, I'm done here. I'm going to have to unsubscribe. I'm hearing from Nicole way too much. Hopefully not. Let me know. And I'll talk to you all soon. Don't forget that this Friday is a brand new writing prompt over on the YouTube channel, but it could also be in your inbox if you just, stopwritingalone.substack.com. And also this Friday, I'll be sharing a new short story over on the other Substack. Now I have two, storyhoarder.substack.com. And if you've been keeping up with my YA novel, there was a new chapter on Wednesday, chapter 20. I couldn't believe it when I typed it this week that I'm up to chapter 20 of sharing that story with the world. Amazing. Okay, really, that's it. Have a wonderful week. Happy writing. I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you as always for listening.